Okay, everyone please stand for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Janine, we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eilenberger? Here. Mr. Francolino, absent. Mr. Hackett?
Here.
Mrs. McCleary, David? Here. Okay. Councilman American?
Here.
Mr. Manger, absent. Mr. Novak?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Chairman Diver?
Here. Okay, this meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law. Notice of this meeting was included in a list of meetings sent to the Co-Star and Asbury Park Press, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and on the borough website. I assume everyone has a copy of the minutes in front of them from January 20th. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eilenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Francolino, no, sorry. Mr. Hackett?
Yes.
Ms. McCleary?
Abstain.
Councilman American?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Abstain.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Abstain.
Chairman Diver?
Yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda you will see is the correspondence and discussion, the rules and regulations of the planning board. Dennis, if you could just give us an overview of this. on the
Well,
rules and regs.
when I started here, we were looking through some old files, procedures, et cetera, and I said that as a freebie, I would try to help the board adopt some rules and regulations. That's as permitted by the municipal land use law, is pretty standard. It governs the conduct of meetings, witnesses, all kinds of how you call meetings, how agendas are set, et cetera. The rules that I've provided you are rules that were adopted by other clients, but they're really taken out of the Cox book, which you know is kind of like the Bible of land use law. So I've circulated rules and regulations to the board. There is, number one, I have no dog in the hunt, so any of those items that at some point the chairman will decide how you deal with it, but we'll talk about questions, things you like, don't like, why is it there. I took my other towns, the most recent adoption, I switched out the names, using find and replace, changed a couple of the dates, so it wasn't, although it's a pretty thick document, it'll take you a while to get through it. It wasn't reinventing the wheel by any means. So I haven't really even looked at those rules hard to say, how do we tailor them to, spring the kites. But at least we started it. I finally got to it. At least we started it, and then during the course of the next, whenever the board's ready to start talking about it, if board members want to just have questions, they want to call me individually, that's perfectly fine. And if it's something we need to talk about in the meeting, we do. Just trying to move that forward, and as I said, no cost to the borough, and it'll be a good thing to have in our files.
Definitely. And again, especially for those who weren't, here privy to that first discussion, we sort of wanted to get everything a little more nailed down and transparent and obvious, and something in the books that everyone could refer to in terms of how we should operate and, how it's done.
And just to be clear, there were just, I didn't forget the questions, but Janine or Joe asked the questions, say, well, look at your rules and regulations.
You didn't have that. Unfortunately. So what I would ask all the members to do, as we're pretty much constituted at this part, as we're going to be, for our next meeting, if you would review these, if you have any questions, if you have any points that you think may be missing, or that you want included or not included, as a matter of fact, let's have that discussion at our next meeting, and we can start to codify this and put it together.
And just please remember, it's a free call. If you want to, privately, instead of raising in public, if you have a question or concern, you want to do that privately with me, please feel free.
You could get disbarred for making a comment like that. That's insanity.
Not this bar, I'll be thrown out of the bar association.
There was a, on the capital improvement on the fire siren, does anyone have any questions on that?
I was at the meeting with the installer with camping. Not heard back from them, but the announcement, and they considered moving it to this right next to here instead of down there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Would that require coming back here? Or? I assume.
My understanding is they haven't quite nailed down. Discussions.
Yeah, this is
But
more
if they-
central to town, right here.
But what I'm saying is, wouldn't they have to come back before us if they're gonna make that sort of a change? Okay. Next. Anybody else have any other questions? There is no old business. New business, we have the application.
I just want to have to recuse myself.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, both Mr. American and Mr. Clark, Councilman American and Mr. Clark are recusing themselves. They're on the 200-foot property owner list,
Right.
so they're considered an interested party, so I asked them to.
All right, this is the Amoscato Family LLC, 2003, 5 Highway 71, the conditional use. I would point out that this is not a discussion as to what is being done there, because we've already had that discussion in terms of when this application was made. And I will ask the attorney if you would please explain this, whether the other board members here.
I don't know if, this is kind of an unusual circumstance, because ordinarily this is an issue that's taken care of at the site, and I'll give you a little bit of the background. The application today, and just note for the record that the notice to join the property owners and affidavit of publication are in order. The board has jurisdiction to hear this matter. Council, you'll let me set the stage, please. In your B3 zone, there is a list of conditional uses that are permitted in the zone. And there are specific requirements related solely to a conditional use. A conditional use is considered permitted in the zone, provided they meet all those conditions. If they fail to meet those conditions, it becomes a use variance and is a determination made by the zone. When this first came up, Joe had contacted me regarding some questions on the ordinance and what had gone on in the site plan review. In 2014, the applicant received, at least from reading the resolution, preliminary and final site plan approval on the property. However, ordinarily, when you apply for site plan approval, you also apply for this conditional use permit. In fact, the plans Joe will talk about, or the applicant may talk about, show that, there are, even on the items that aren't related to the conditional use, that comply with the parking requirement for offices, theirs. And it appears to me, and knowing their lawyer very well, that, but I wasn't here, that there was discussions regarding the varying uses of this building. I wasn't here, so I can't be certain. I'll have it, can be transcribed. But when we looked at the file, we really thought they didn't have to come here, because they had shown that they were meeting the conditional uses in various variations of how they would use the property. Nevertheless, when I got the resolution does not say preliminary and final site plan and a conditional use permit. So I advised that it would be my position that if the resolution didn't use those three words, conditional use permit, it would be more appropriate to come back to the board. It should be, with all due respect, a 5-minute discussion. Your ordinance for the D3 zone is adopted, it looks like 2013, has conditional uses, and really just three. One is a drugstore, provided that the use does not exceed 3,000 square feet of gross floor area. This is not a drugstore. A food store, provided that the use does not exceed 6,000 square feet of gross floor area. This is not a food store. Or a professional office. And Eileen brought up some of the wording problems here, but it says not to exceed 50% of the total gross floor area within the zone, and not to exceed 25% of the total first floor area in the zone. So the applicant has to show, or, and I think it's probably self-evident, that in that zone, all the property, the ordinance actually is kind of crazy. It says you look at all the floor area in the zone, it can't be more than 50% of it, or 25% of their total first floor area. You have houses in that zone. As it sits today, you don't really have a lot of professional offices there. The applicant really is proposing to clearly complies with that, but limit his property as if it said to the property. So it's 50% of the property itself and 25% of the first floor itself. That's your determination. Do they meet that qualification? Yes, you have to be required to issue a permit. No, they have to go to the zoning board. So it's pretty black and white, and the applicant has to show you that they comply. Anything to add, Joe, that I missed?
What I can add is, when we did the park review from the engineering standpoint, it was considered professional offices.
So, just so I get the math right, if they included the houses, they could put a lot more offices in.
Well, the problem with the whole thing is that they could put more
If
than
they're
50%.
choosing to go with just their buildings.
Logical.
Okay.
I think that maybe.
Yes.
Was the intent of the original.
Yeah, I know, but that's not, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that.
They're
I read it
complying
3
with the
times
original
before I'm
intent
like,
of the
what are you
ordinance.
talking
Yeah.
about? And Eileen picked it up as well.
Okay, good.
But now you're talking about both of the building, the total area on
The
the
complex.
second floor.
The complex.
And as I said, as Joe said, the plans actually delineated that as proposed use of the property.
Correct.
So, ordinarily, Mark Akins, and there's a full council there who's really good at this, just somebody missed, I think, when they went through the resolution, but it doesn't matter. They have to show that they comply. What they did before is, at ship sale, we just need to know if they comply with respect to those percentages.
Which was determined that they already have.
Well, you have to determine that, not me.
Oh, we had to determine
It
that.
appears that way,
All right.
you have to determine it, and if you believe they have, I still am going to make suggestions on how you restrict it. To what
Let's
it
hear
should be. What the mayor said should be. Go ahead, counsel. I'm sorry to steal your thunder.
No, not at all. I know many of you, my name is Jim Sabitas, I'm an attorney in Spring Lake. I represent Moscato Family Limited Liability Company. The application couldn't have been presented better than by your counsel. And in fact, we are limiting what we're asking for simply to our complex, nothing beyond that. And the reason why we're here really is to clarify this, as well as when Mr. May and myself were discussing various tenants coming in, each time this came up, and it was evident that we needed to clarify it and do away with it once and for all. As you'll see from the testimony we'll give, we are compliant with the standards specified in the zone. That has been previously determined, the documentation which we stipulated with Mr. May in application for this application and its attachments, that the prior application not just be regurgitated to you. The documents are on record. They show compliance. I have Mr. Fruit here, our engineer and planner, who can give testimony to the fact that they do comply, so that we'll open up to any questions you have. But simply put, I think Mr. Collins laid it out perfectly, that is exactly what we want to do. It's likely that we'll have various office space on the second floor. Whether we get to 25% on the first floor, we'd rather see it retail, but we want to have that option, so we'll comply with the letter of the ordinance to this site alone. So with that,
I swear-
Engineer, yes.
Can I swear in your witness?
yes, please.
Will you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you have about this board should be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Will you state your name, spelling your last name for the record?
Robert Frood, F as in Frank, R-E-U-D,
And P-E at the end of it?
B-E-N-T-T.
Do you need his qualifications?
Well, do you swear a firm statement to make this portion of the true culture is nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Drew, can you just mark as A1 the plan set that you submitted, so we can you describe that to me?
I have a copy of the site plan sheet,
The ones
or
that-
reduced.
Yeah, it's a reduced set that
Sure.
we put with this application. That's
Okay,
what
so I
you're
want to
asking.
mark it as in evidence, A1, which is, yeah, okay.
Put me on site plan for existing issues.
This is a preliminary final nature site plan approval prepared by Dynamic Engineering, consisting of 16 sheets dated 12/16/13. Is there a last revision date that shows?
February 14th, is it? April 14th?
10/27/14.
Yes.
I just want to-
Joe, if you need another study.
All right.
The qualifications, we,
I think that
the board accept him as a professional. Ms. Frick, you assisted with the prior application and the, specifically with compliance in the zone and specifications. Can you give us a little detail as to what was there and how it stands now, and if we have, as currently stands, complied with the requirements of the zone and the standards?
Yes, so the application included the existing bank of 3688 square feet, which remained and remains today, and the construction of the two new buildings, one of 3,000 feet, one of 2,000 feet per floor, 5,000 square feet per floor, total 10,000 square feet. So the total area on the building area on the property would be 13,688 square feet. But of the two new buildings, the plans that were just marked as A1 and that were discussed during the original application contemplated first floor retail, 5,000 square feet, second floor office, 5,000 square feet, which would be compliant with the conditional use standards and the option for 25% of the first floor. The parking calculations indicate the same, which is 5,000 square feet of retail and 5,000 square feet of office.
Just going back to the parking then, in the calculations, is there a difference between retail and office as far as per square footage?
Professional office is 1 per 250, and retail is also, retail is 1 per 150.
Okay, and in the prior calculations, if you set it up in the fashion that's being proposed, is there adequate parking?
There is, there would be 69 spaces required, and there are 73 spaces.
So there are additional
Existing.
spaces that are
There are
necessary?
more spaces than are necessary, correct.
So as far as your testimony is that you believe we're compliant with the specific standards of the ordinance and specifically B3?
With the conditional use standards and with the parking that would be required associated with those uses, yes.
With that, Mr. Chairman, that's all the testimony we have. We'll open it up to questions of the board, the engineer, myself. We have a representative of the applicant as well, if there are any necessary questions, but.
Does anyone have any questions for the engineer, or? Seeing none.
Can I just confirm, the total square footage of the structure on the property is 13,680 square feet, correct?
That includes the bank building.
Correct.
But the total
688.
square footage is 688. And your
That includes
presentation
the bank.
is to limit professional offices to 50% of that total gross floor area, and no more than 25% on the first floor. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is the bank considered office space, a professional space?
The bank is a permitted use.
It's a separate use classification.
Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have a
Sure,
question.
Nancy?
Okay, I'm just making sure I have my math right, and I heard you correctly. So you had 2,000 square feet on both second stories,
No.
correct?
The building closer to 71 is 3,000 square feet per floor,
Okay,
and the back building is 2,000 square feet per floor.
so your total on the second floor then is 5,000 square feet, which is 50% of the total 10,000 square feet. So that would limit you to all upstairs if we're sticking to the 50%.
If we
Is
did,
that correct?
if we did all office space, that's correct.
Upstairs.
So in the proposal, just to be clear, and it was pointed out, the bank, we're not using the bank in the calculation. It's simply the buildings, the new buildings. So if we put office space in the second floor completely, there'll be no office space in the first floor. If we had a retail situation where they wanted a portion of the second floor, it would open up to 25% possible on the first floor.
Okay.
Can I just get this right? Because the ordinance says total gross floor area. You're gonna limit yourself to something less than the total gross floor area. You're gonna use your calculations based on 10,000 square feet.
Yes.
Let's stipulate that in any.
Yeah, I want to, if you approve it, we have to get it to open to the public, but.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, and we're looking at the bank as a permitted separate
Less
use.
space, less space.
Yeah,
Right,
it's actually, it's.
right. But it's the intent for these two buildings, and that was the intent all along, I believe, in the application.
Which complies with the original ordinance in question. Does anyone else have any other questions? I'll open it up to the public for discussion. If anyone from the public would like to make a statement, please come to the microphone, state your name, your address, and any of your concerns, but I'm happy to hear you. We have a motion to close the voice of the public.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Eilenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Hackett?
Yes.
Ms. Hayden?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Chairman Dever?
Yes. All right, at this time, if our attorney would be so gracious to assist us in how we should fashion this.
Well, it's kind of, you know, if the board finds that they've offered to comply with the rest of the board, so it's pretty straightforward. It would be appropriate then if the board agrees with that and finds that they can comply and or will be required to comply, someone will make a motion to grant a conditional use permit. However, there would be a limitation on that permit in that this applies to the property itself, and the total gross floor area to be calculated will be the 10,000 square feet of the two presently unoccupied buildings, which further limits that professional office use, but it would apply to the property. I would also recommend that the mayor and councilman were here, to alert the council about not to be anomalous.
Just to clarify these numbers again.
Go ahead.
From the 10,000 square feet, 5,000 per second floor, plus the additional 25% first floor is what you're requesting, correct?
No, 5,000 maximum on the floors, no more than 2,500 on the bottom floor.
And can we, I mean, it's mayor and council's duty to fix the actual ordinance so that it kind of complies with the way that they want to use it?
Probably be good.
Yeah,
I
it
know
sounds like
the B3 zone predates me, but I read about it.
No, it sounds like it's a little too vague as it is, which is why they're here, right?
It's probably, and really, you know, it's certainly up to Mr. McLean, but the borough attorney, but probably just a scrivener's error.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Can I have a motion, please, for a conditional use permit along with the stipulations that was made by our attorney? Is there a second? Roll call.
Mrs. Eilenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Hackett?
Yes.
Ms. Hayden?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Chairman Dever?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, I think that's, as there is no further business, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Need a second?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I tried.